Hours, a weekly live show brought to you by team at Bunker Labs, a national network of veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs dedicated to growing our ecosystem. I'm your host, the one and only Iron Mike Steadman, coming to you from Newark, New Jersey, joined by my co-host Amy Morrison and our special guest today, Breen Sullivan and Kat Haen from The Fourth Effect. We're going to be talking about how and why you need to build out an advisory and governing board for your startup or small business. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. We're so excited to be here speaking to Bunker Labs. It's amazing.
So before we talk about advisory boards, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Amy to pass along any updates that are taking place in the bunker this holiday season.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I'll be real quick because we got a lot to talk about today. So real quick, there's only a couple things. So we want to remind you the holiday gift guide is still up. So bunkerlabs.org/marketplace-2023. And there you can get up to 75 unique items from veteran and military spouse-owned product or companies. And some of them are offering 20% off just for the bunker community. And then the other thing is this week is Veterans and Residents Showcase Week. So check out bunkerlabs.org/veteran-showcase to find an event near you. And that's going to be all this week. There was probably already a couple events yesterday and then going on all week. So those are the main things that I've got going on in the bunker this week. Awesome. Oh, and CEO Circle is happening in New York, but that's not
CEO Circle. Hey, listen, y'all, make sure you check out that holiday gift guide. We've got some amazing products on there. This is a great way to give back to the ecosystem. A lot of you all know how hard it is to get those first little sales and stuff, etc. So please go on that gift guide and make sure you show some love and support, and let's keep it in the family this holiday season. Now, without further ado, I get to introduce the ladies from The Fourth Effect. So actually, I'll have you all go ahead and introduce yourselves and bring us up to date on the Fourth Effect and the importance of what you all are doing to bring more equity in the advisory board space.
Absolutely. Kat, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. A little background on me. I am a serial entrepreneur. The company I had last, I invented a beauty product that I brought to market internationally. It was UK, Japan, Korea, and the US. And it was going great for 24 months. And then I experienced the knockoffs, and they came fast and furious. And I had to wind down the company. But in doing so, I was looking for my next journey and really loved being an entrepreneur. So I was putting feelers out. I was introduced to Breen, my now co-founder, because she was working on an exciting project. And one of the things that when we got together, she was asking me about the company I was winding down. And she was immediately giving me amazing information, amazing advice, the things I could have done, the things that could have saved my company, all relating to, like what advisors would do on a board, what I could have had that I didn't know about. And that was the one key thing that really I came away from our conversation with, is knowing about advisory boards and how beneficial that could have been to me in my company. So when she told me about her vision, what she's planning, I was all in. And with that, I'll throw it over to you, Breen.
Well, thanks, Kat. And the reason why I had these great insights is not because I'm super amazing. It's because my background is as a general counsel for high growth tech companies. And so I had, a specific kind of insight and knowledge base that, a lot of times early stage companies can't afford because you don't have an in-house general counsel. But this is another reason why advisory boards can be incredibly useful, because you can pluck some of those skill sets that are otherwise hard to access and benefit from them as an early stage company if they're serving as advisors. So just to give you my backstory, so I was coming at this from the perspective of a general counsel for these smaller companies, startups, growth stage companies, and I really had two insights. And the first had to do with just no clear path to the boardroom, whether that's the advisory board or a governing board for anyone, really. I mean, so I was looking at it from the perspective of a woman, no clear path to board service for anyone. It's a black box. Women particularly are affected by this, in corporate America. So I saw that. And then the second insight I had was really specific to me as a general counsel, as the lawyer for these companies, I realized so many of them had empty advisory boards, or they had empty, or a lot of times, and they had empty independent director seats on their governing boards. Also, many early stage companies weren't making strategic use of observer seats. So what this really just boiled down to, way less board opportunities than there could be. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of someone trying to break into the board candidate pipeline and build your own for-profit board career, where are the opportunities to access? Well, there's way fewer because of these startups and growth stage companies not prioritizing, not building, not filling those seats. But then also, all of these early stage companies are missing out on the benefit of having that advisory board and that governing board, because those are real challenges that companies face trying to scale and fund their companies, is accessing the right people and the right funders. So, these were my insights, meeting Kat, understanding precisely how early stage companies could benefit. That really was the genesis behind creating the Fourth Effect, which is a two-sided board marketplace. It's very unique in the sense that the 800 companies that are part of the Fourth Effect that are using our marketplace, they're startup and growth stage. They're earlier stage companies. We encourage and incentivize those companies to build out and add to their advisory board and also their governing board. Certainly advisor seats, pre-advisor seats, also something called angel advisor seats, which essentially means I'm raising an angel round. I would really love an angel check in connection with you taking that seat on my advisory board. So it can be a direct source of funding and an indirect source of funding for founders. We also have an investment club because we knew in order to create this two-sided board marketplace, it was important to get companies funded. So, either indirectly through building out your boards and sometimes directly through seeking funding from accredited investor board members. So I'll stop there.
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to all our people in the chat tuning in. Shout out to Kyle Rogers and some others. We appreciate you tuning in to us live. Now I'm going to go back to the ladies. So first off, what is an advisory board? Okay, because I think let's start there. I run a nonprofit, right? I organized my board of directors, but even still, I didn't understand the difference between like an advisory board for a startup or traditional small business as opposed to the board of directors.
Okay, great question. And sorry, I'm jumping in. I can, as the lawyer, super easy for me to answer this. So governing board, there is a fiduciary obligation that the directors have to the shareholders of the company. It's a formal relationship and it's governed by corporate law, wherever that company is incorporated. If it's a C Corp, an LLC, there's law that factors into how many directors sit around the table, whether they're independent, whether they're part of the management team of the company. An advisory board, totally different animal. You absolutely can have an advisory board simultaneously with having a governing board. Those two things should coexist, in order for the company to get as much value as possible. Advisory boards are a contractual relationship entirely. So the corporate law has nothing to do with it. The advisors serve at the pleasure of the CEO and of the management team. The advisors are there to help the CEO operate, like manage the business and make it function. There can be, one, there can be 20. It's up to you. Typically, they're compensated. They're compensated in equity or in cash. There's a couple of frameworks that are really accepted that are published on the internet. The FAST framework is one. Also, CARTA just came out with an updated framework for later stage venture-backed private companies. The TLDR is that the amount of equity that should be granted to an advisor is usually 0.1% up to 0.5%. It's a sliding scale. It depends on the maturity of your company, but also the level of services you expect to receive. And so it should be typically around 5 hours per month. If you are giving 0.1% equity, that equity should vest over 2 years typically. And you want to be careful that you don't give that advisor that little bit of equity until they're ready to perform. And then they earn that equity over the time that they're performing the services for you. That these advisors can fill skill gaps. So, like a general counsel, for instance, a CFO, maybe you need some marketing expertise. They also can be key introductions, something that very specifically you need to push your business to the next level.
Absolutely.
And I would love to add
Please.
that they're a great way to extend your runway, because you're actually bringing, your champions on board. You're paying them through equity, but they're going to do the things that you might normally have to subcontract out for.
100%. I also think about, like you said, cover down on those gaps, right? So what I'll say about the veteran space, a lot of times, like most of us may or may not have that sales experience, right? So maybe we haven't had experience on the biz dev side of the house. Or maybe, like you said, we don't really have marketing experience, right? We have this gap. So by identifying an advisor that can come in and be that sounding board for us, right? They have some skin in the game because we give them that percentage of equity, or we pay them, can be a real cheat code. And like Kat, I'm thinking about you, right? You bring in this skincare product to market, right? There's a lot of landmines out there, okay? From a manufacturing perspective, and a lot of stuff you don't know what you don't know until you get out there and you start getting punched in the face. So you start bringing on advisors that can help you navigate that early on. They're like, oh, you're trying to work with this supplier in China? Listen, I've been there, done that. This is what I recommend you do. And they're speaking from a place of conviction instead of just like speculation or guessing. And it goes back to the old saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, probably need to get another room.
So true. I learned later on that when you and don't quote me, but what I learned was that when you're manufacturing somewhere, that should be the first place where you actually go for a patent. I learned the hard way, but had I had, somebody with legal experience on my board, advisory board, that was something that I could have, tapped them for advice on, or, come up with some strategy. Would have been really helpful. I would have spent my dollars differently, put it that way.
Now, when you're forming an advisory board at the early stages, and let's say, okay, you have this great startup idea, you might have got a little seed capital, maybe not yet. How many people do you want to have on your advisory board to start out? And what is typically are you seeing as they start to receive additional rounds of capital, or they start to grow and scale?
A couple of things. Number one, there is no one right way to do it. So it can be pretty idiosyncratic, depending on what your company is, what your business is, what your needs are. I would say we see companies that are pre-Series A, going into a pre-seed round or a seed round, I would say maybe 5 to 7 advisors. One thing about the governing board that I just want to be clear about is that when you do take on a bigger funding round, that's when the venture capitalists, poke their nose in and start telling you who has to sit around the table in your governing boardroom. And a governing board, their biggest responsibility is to fire the CEO. That's kind of why they exist. And so they don't always fire the CEO, but they often do. So as the founder and the CEO, if you want to retain control of your company longer, it's also a really good idea before you take that check from a venture capitalist that you walk into the negotiation having more than just yourself sitting around the governing board table as a director. So this is another reason why having advisors is useful, because it's a short list of talented people that you get to know, and you can pluck them and elevate them to be independent directors with you before you take that money from investors.
So if I raise capital, chances are that the venture capital firm is going to place a board observer, right? So that kind of comes with taking the money. Do they also kind of nudge founders into say, hey, this person needs to be on your advisory board? Or do you recommend the founders organize their own kind of independent advisory board?
Well, so they'll try and get they'll insist to put someone on the governing board. So yes, observer, but also independent director. And those directors vote and, have power to fire you and do things. The advisory board, The investors don't care about that. They're not going to ask to sit on it. The advisory board is like a totally different arena that exists only to help the founders. And the reason, the connection between the two is really as a short list of candidates for that founder to pluck their own friends that serve at their pleasure, that can help them kind of keep a majority in that governing boardroom and keep the investor at bay.
Okay, I'm going to shift.
And I'd also like.
No, go ahead, Kat. Go ahead, Kat.
I'd love to just add also, we strongly believe that it's never too early to create an advisory board because they're really just accelerants that are going to help you scale your company, but it's also never too late. So if you don't have one, but you already have a governing board because you already have investment, create an advisory board anyways. Do that because they're like we said, they're going to fill different skill and knowledge gaps and give you access to networks that you're not going to get through your governing board. So always create an advisory board.
All right, I want to shift the conversation now and talk about equity. Why does it matter who's on the table? I mean, who's sitting around the table? Why is that important to people? Because you have some people that say it's all capitalism, right? We're just about making money. But why do I need women in a board seat? Why do I need people of color in a board seat? Why should I care? I'm just trying to stay alive and, grow my business, get my first sale. And now you're adding this other complexity to it.
Well, I like what you just said. It's about capitalism because the bottom line is there's so many studies now, they keep coming out. It's just definitive that if you have diversity, racial diversity, gender diversity at the board level and at the executive level, companies outperform. So 27% increase in profitability, 21% increase in value that the company is producing. And this is from McKinsey, from a couple of recent, really big, well-regarded studies. And there are many more. So, I mean, the headline, diversity is good for the bottom line. So it is the economic imperative. It's just better for companies. Like you see around corners better, you anticipate markets that you maybe otherwise don't see. Like your product will do better if you have more points of view that it's helping you navigate and make risk-adjusted decisions. So I don't know, Kat, if you had something to add there.
No, absolutely. It's especially in consumer goods, you want to have people on your board that represent the community that you're selling to. And I mean, it applies to every industry, but it's the truth. You want women on the table if you're in femtech. It just makes sense.
Well, one of the things we also talked about is the marketplace. So what do you say to the people that I don't know any women that could serve on this fintech, startup or et cetera? How does Fourth Effect help solve that problem?
Yeah, well, we like to say we built the golf course. It is a golf course where it's all the networking you should need, hopefully. Also, Bumble for boards. If you're a woman, you're able to make the first move. But as a founder, when you're thinking about why is this valuable to have this transparent marketplace? I mean, it really is about being able to, very efficiently, inexpensively, quickly find just diverse talent, regardless of if the person themselves is diverse, like all different kinds of life experiences and credibility, credentials you can find through our marketplace because both sides can see each other, search for each other. It's AI powered, preference driven to create efficiency.
What we're going to do
You'll
now.
hear from a lot of companies that, board seats are exchanged through networks, right? And you'll hear from a lot of companies that, we just don't have a network. We don't know anyone. And we're just trying to dispel that. We're creating the marketplace where everybody will know somebody that will fit the mold.
Love it. What we're going to do now is we're going to transition to book recommendations. While we do that, for those of you that are tuning in live, if you have any questions for these ladies, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. Kyle, I hope you got your question answered. He wanted to know, is this something for all types of companies? He only considered an advisory board for his 501c3, but based off our conversation, I know this is a thing for small business owners. This is a thing for early and growth stage startups. I feel like it's a growth cheat code.
Right. So one quick thing, we are for profit. So
Yep.
Not for profits, that's just not our arena. So any for-profit company, whether you're an LLC, a C Corp, it's an advisory board, a governing board, anything like that, they're welcome. We also have a job board there's also lots of other resources and benefits for companies, including our investment club. So if you are fundraising, we are a source of capital directly and indirectly. All companies are welcome all for-profit companies are welcome to join us.
Awesome. What about book recommendations? Let's start with you, Kat.
Well, one that was really, interesting to us was called The Cold Start Problem, because it's talking about market networks, and that's effectively what we are building, because it's all about interweaving and the network effect that we're trying to have on creating equity in the innovations ecosystem. So we love that one. And Breen, you want to talk about the other one?
Sure, and then I'll talk about the XX Edge. So XX, like the double chromosome. It's written by two investors, and it really just makes kind of a hard, cold case, just very numbers based, for why every investor out there has a fiduciary obligation to be investing, putting more money into the hands of women and having more diverse voices making investment decisions, because it makes the pie bigger for all of us. So I think it's just a great book for that argument.
And my book recommendation is, I'm actually listening to an audiobook called The Fractional CMO Method. I'm a small business owner. I run an agency, Ironbound Media. And so, we've got to always shift and adapt our offerings. And so, innovation doesn't just apply to startups. It also applies to small businesses. So I'm just trying to level up my game a bit. And they've given me some great frameworks and way to think about growing a advisory aspect of your business, where you're, able to get paid instead of just doing the traditional giving away your strategy for free. So essentially learning how to charge a premium for your strategy, and then being able to provide a retainer or some other additional services to help them actually implement the strategy. So check out the Fractional CMO Method. There's a lot of opportunity in this entrepreneurial ecosystem for fractional COOs, fractional CMOs. I feel like it's becoming more of not of a thing, but the market is becoming a lot more tolerant of it. And so I'm always trying to up my game. And this could be a great book for those of you out there that are still working that full-time job and trying to think about, okay, how do I start to bring in some additional sources of income? Check out the Fractional CMO Method. Now, before we wrap up, ladies, one of the things I'm going to tell you is I'm going to reach out to you offline and see if I can get you on the Transition podcast to do a deeper dive on advisory boards. This is something I've been wanting to do for our audience. I even wrote about advisory boards in my book, Black Veteran Entrepreneur. And so I'm going to follow up with you all on that. But in the interim, please share with people, how they can support you all in the Fourth Effect, and how they can learn more if interested in being part of your network.
Absolutely. So I think we've shared some links in the chat, and if we haven't, we will. One, there is a board bootcamp coming up on December 12th from noon to 2 Eastern Standard Time. It's 2 hours long. It's a deep dive into all things boards. So, and it's intended for entrepreneurs, founders of small businesses, startups, growth stage companies, and then candidates as well. So both audiences are in the room simultaneously. We go into great detail with governing boards, fiduciary boards, advisory boards, how to paper them, how to structure them, everything. And then we also do a platform tour every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for 30 minutes. You can sign up through our website at thefourtheffect.com. It's a great way to come meet other people. It's good networking. And also we take you inside the platform, and you can figure out if it's right for you, and then we can help you get onboarded. We also shared a link to our Unstoppable campaign, where you can skip the kind of application process. We'll vet you after the fact, and you can get 50% off membership for a company. It's only $250 a year with the discount. So it's very cheap. And it comes with the ability to nominate women to get free board candidate memberships to serve on boards themselves. So really encourage you to do that. We ask in exchange that you share it.
Love it.
And
go ahead,
FYI, just experienced entrepreneurs make great board candidates as well. We bring a skill set that other founders could really thrive on.
Lana from the chat wants to know, why is the company called The Fourth Effect?
First it was the fourth floor, and then we realized that we had outgrown the confines of a floor, and really this was a lingering effect, kind of like the butterfly effect.
Got it. Awesome. Well, ladies, it's been a pleasure having you. Again, I'm going to follow up, see if we can get you on the Transition Podcast to do this deep dive. In the meantime, everyone, I want you to make sure you head over to the Transition Podcast on your favorite podcast hosting platform and hit that subscribe button. Got some great content coming your way. Like you said, I think last week I recorded an episode discussing, what was last week's episode? I remember I record so much content, but I need you to check out the podcast and let us know what you think. And if there's a question you have, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn at ironmikesteadman.com. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors for the show, the MetLife Foundation, for making it possible. Until next time, everyone, peace, love. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.